The mountains of White Crest National Forest screamed with winter's fury. Snow fell sideways in sheets, thick enough to suffocate a man where he stood. Through this frozen hell stumbled three figures: Sergeant Danny McCall, a grizzled lawman with haunted eyes; Detective Ben Reyes, whose military training couldn't stop the cold creeping into his bones; and young Deputy Jake Holloway, who'd never imagined his first winter patrol would end like this. Behind them, the twisted wreck of their police SUV burned orange against the endless white, melting snow and sizzling puddles around the tires. Their hands were bound with zip ties, cutting into flesh. Their radios had been crushed under boot heels. The men who'd left them here, men they'd once called brothers in blue, had made sure of that. The storm swallowed their shouts for help before the words even left their lips. This wasn't just a blizzard. This was nature's executioner. Danny collapsed against a snowdrift, his salt and pepper beard frozen solid. 42 years old, and he'd survived 2 tours in Iraq only to die in some Montana backcountry. Ben Reyes, usually all sharp edges and sharper tongue, sat silent, his dark eyes tracking their own blood in the snow. Young Jake Holloway, the rookie who always carried dog treats in his vest, coughed up black phlegm from the smoke inhalation. No footprints led away from their burning vehicle. No voices called through the pines, just the endless wail of wind through the lodgepole pines. The realization settled heavier than the snow piling on their shoulders. This wasn't some tragic accident. The cut brake lines, the ambush, the way their fellow officers had smiled while tying their hands. This was murder. The kind where nobody ever finds the bodies, the kind that stays buried under 10 feet of snow until spring thaw.
Jake's whole body shook violently, his teeth chattering like castanets. We're not going to make it through the night," he stammered. Ben Reyes, the former Marine, growled, "Shut your mouth, kid," through blue-tinged lips. But Danny McCall, Danny, just stared into the swirling white void. Then a sound cut through the storm's howl. Not wind, not creaking trees. A whimper, weak, pitiful, close. Jake's bloodshot eyes widened. You hear that?" he rasped. The men held their breath. The wind shrieked again, drowning out all sound. Then silence. A terrible, empty silence broken only by the pounding of 3 failing hearts. Somewhere out in that frozen darkness, something alive was suffering, something that, against all odds, had found them in this wilderness, something that might be their only chance. Danny squinted through snow-crusted lashes. Something moved in the whiteout, a shadow among shadows. Low to the ground, fast as a striking snake. His numb fingers twitched toward a sidearm that wasn't there. Wolf? No. Bigger, more deliberate. The shape darted between skeletal pines, then froze. 2 pinpricks of reflected firelight glowed in the darkness. Eyes, wild, intelligent, watching. The shadow lunged closer in bursts of movement, disappearing between snow gusts. Danny's breath hitched in his throat. 50 feet away. Then 30. Then a nightmare emerged from the storm. A mass of matted fur and frost, moving with the lethal grace of a predator. A guttural snarl ripped through the wind, deeper than any natural sound. Not an animal. Not just any animal. A ghost from Danny's past, made flesh. And it was coming right for them.
The creature stepped into the dying firelight, revealing itself inch by terrifying inch. A German shepherd, or what remained of one. His once glossy black and tan coat was matted with ice and old blood. Ribs stood out like barrel staves beneath thinning fur. A jagged scar ran from his left ear, torn at the tip, down to a muzzle crisscrossed with old wounds. But it was the eyes that stopped Danny's heart. Gold-flecked brown, burning with feral intelligence. The dog's growl vibrated through the frozen air, a sound that promised violence. Ben Reyes tensed, ready to fight even with bound hands. "That's no damn stray," he hissed. Danny's chapped lips parted in recognition. That's a canine." The words triggered something in the animal. His head cocked slightly, ears twitching forward. For one impossible second, man and beast locked eyes across the years and the storm. Then the dog charged. Not to attack, to save. The German shepherd moved like a phantom through the snow, ribs showing through his scarred coat, frost clinging to his matted fur. This was no ordinary stray. The deep scar across his shoulder bore the unmistakable mark of a canine harness. His paws left bloody prints in the snow, yet he didn't falter. Danny's breath caught as he recognized the tactical collar, still half buried in the thick fur. "Rex," he whispered, the name of a canine partner he'd thought dead 2 winters ago when a drug raid went bad. The dog's ears twitched at the sound of his name. How had he survived alone in this wilderness? What horrors had he endured? The answer shone in those intelligent eyes. A story of frozen nights and desperate hunts, of loyalty that refused to die. This dog had cheated death itself to be here tonight, and now he stood between the officers and certain doom. Rex circled the men with military precision, his nose working overtime despite the storm. Blood crusted his paws from miles of travel. Ice clung to his belly fur. When he finally stopped before Danny, a low growl rumbled in his chest. Not threatening, but urgent. The dog's breath came in ragged puffs as he sniffed the zip ties binding Danny's wrists. Then, without warning, Rex clamped his teeth around the plastic. The officers flinched, expecting an attack. But with one powerful jerk of his head, Rex snapped the restraint like it was nothing. Ben gasped as the dog moved to him next. Those powerful jaws, capable of crushing bone, worked with surgeon-like precision. The moment Ben's hands were free, he reached to pet Rex, but the dog dodged the touch with a warning snarl. This wasn't affection. This was duty. Rex turned his golden eyes toward the storm, body tensed. He'd freed them. Now, he would lead them. If they could keep up. As Danny rubbed feeling back into his wrists, realization dawned. "He remembers me," he whispered. 2 years ago, before transferring to Helena, Danny had worked canine units in Missoula. Rex had been his trainee, one of the brightest dogs he'd ever handled. The night of the botched raid, when the warehouse collapsed, Danny crawled through burning rubble to pull Rex to safety. He'd thought the dog died during transport after surgery. Yet here he stood, scarred but alive, remembering the man who'd saved him all those years ago. Rex sniffed urgently at Danny's boots, then at Jake's pant leg, where a hidden pocket held the treats, Jake croaked. He'd always carried dog biscuits, a habit from his childhood pet. Rex's tail gave one brief wag before stiffening again. The storm, the cold, the men hunting them, none of it mattered in this moment of perfect recognition. A bond forged in fire had survived against all odds. With the officer's hands freed, Rex turned his attention to Jake's worsening condition. The young deputy's breathing had turned shallow, his skin frighteningly pale. The dog sniffed Jake's face intently, then suddenly grabbed his jacket sleeve in his teeth. "Hey!" Ben moved to intervene, but Danny held up a hand. Rex pulled insistently, his whole body quivering with urgency. When Jake didn't respond, the dog released him and trotted a few paces into the storm before looking back. "He wants us to follow," Danny realized. The men exchanged doubtful glances, ventured deeper into the blizzard, with no gear, no guarantee of shelter. Rex barked sharply, the same commanding tone he'd used on patrols years ago. Then he did something extraordinary.
The battle-scarred canine, who'd survived 2 winters alone in this merciless wilderness, lowered his front end and a play bow. It was the universal dog signal. Trust me. In that moment, the choice became clear. They could freeze to death here, or follow the ghost dog into the unknown. As the group stumbled after Rex through knee-deep snow, the dog's behavior changed. His ears pinned back, his tail stiffened, every muscle tensed as he sniffed the wind. Then Danny saw it too. Fresh boot prints partially covered by falling snow. Someone had been here recently, watching them. Rex's lips curled back in a silent snarl, revealing teeth that had torn through Montana's worst predators. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was personal. The canine's entire demeanor radiated cold fury. The same focused intensity Danny remembered from drug busts when Rex had detected hidden narcotics. Only now, the scent he tracked was human. Dangerous. The officers instinctively closed ranks as Rex vanished ahead into the whiteout. Seconds later, a sharp yelp echoed through the trees, followed by a man's startled curse. When they caught up, they found Rex standing over a camouflaged figure sprawled in the snow. The dog's jaws clamped firmly around the man's wrist, just inches from a drawn pistol. Message delivered. The hunt was on.
Rex led them through the storm to a structure barely visible in the swirling snow, a rotting cabin hunched against the wind, its roof sagging under the weight of winter. No smoke rose from its crooked chimney. No light glowed in its broken windows. Just an old ranger's outpost, forgotten by time. Danny hesitated at the door, his cop instinct screaming, "Trap!" But Rex pushed inside without fear, his claws clicking on warped floorboards. The interior smelled of mildew and something darker, old blood maybe. A rusted stove stood cold in the corner, a single cot with a moth-eaten blanket, and on the far wall, something that made Ben Reyes go still. Deep scratches in the wood, like something or someone had tried to claw their way out. Danny ran his fingers over the markings. AC 1985, carved jaggedly into a support beam. Beneath it, newer scratches formed words. They lie. The air grew heavier. Jake slumped against the wall, his breath shallow. Ben checked the old shelves, finding expired cans and a waterlogged journal. Rex, though, didn't rest. He paced the perimeter of the cabin, sniffing the floorboards near the stove. Then he stopped, growled, and began to dig. His claws tore at the rotten wood until a hollow sound. Danny pried up the loose plank. Beneath it lay a metal box, crusted with dirt. Inside, a ledger, names, dates, dollar amounts, and at the top of each page, a single word, Kroll. Ben's face went pale. "This isn't just a trafficking ring," he whispered. "This is a graveyard." Outside, the wind screamed like a thing alive. The ledger's pages fluttered in the draft, revealing locations, abandoned mines, old logging roads, this very cabin. Jake's hands shook as he turned a page. "These are transport routes." Danny's stomach twisted. They'd stumbled onto something far bigger than a botched arrest. This was a pipeline. And the men who left them to die? They weren't just dirty cops. They were ghost drivers. Rex whined, nudging Danny's leg. Then he lunged for the door, snarling. Too late. Outside, snow crunched under boots. A voice, muffled but clear. "Check the cabin." Ben grabbed the fire poker. Jake tried to stand. Danny looked at Rex, the dog's ears flat, teeth bared. No way out, nowhere to run. Just 4 walls and a fight. The doorknob turned. The door burst open. Logan Voss stood framed in the storm, his rifle raised. Behind him, Drew Mercer grinned, drone in hand.
Well, well, look what the blizzard coughed up. Rex's growl shook the room. Danny stepped forward, blocking Jake. You're working for Kroll. Logan's smile didn't reach his eyes. Smart guy. Too bad smart guys die cold. Drew lifted the drone, its camera lens shattered. Your mutt broke my toy. Gonna return the favor. Rex lunged, but Logan fired. The shot missed, barely, ricocheting off the stove. In the chaos, Ben swung the poker, catching Drew's arm. Danny tackled Logan, and Rex went for the throat. The cabin became a blur of fists, snarls, and splintering wood. Then, over the chaos, a new sound, a helicopter's distant thrum. Logan's eyes widened. No! He scrambled back. Drew hissed. They weren't supposed to find us. The game had changed.
Jake collapsed mid-fight, his skin burning. Smoke inhalation, hypothermia, now infection. Danny dragged him to the cot as Ben kept Logan pinned. Rex stood guard over Jake, licking his face, a desperate attempt to keep him awake. "Stay with me, kid," Danny begged. Jake's lips moved soundlessly. Outside, the helicopter's searchlight cut through the snow. So close. But Logan wasn't done. He kicked free, grabbing Drew. "We're leaving." Ben moved to stop them until Rex leapt, knocking the rifle away. The men fled into the storm. The cabin fell silent, except for Jake's ragged breathing. Rex pressed against him, sharing warmth. Danny's hand shook as he flipped through the ledger. There had to be something, a weakness, a location, anything to end this. Then he saw it, a frequency. "Ben," he rasped, "that chopper's SAR. We can hail them." Rex barked once, approval. Jake's fingers twitched in the dog's fur. Not dead yet, not while Rex stood watch. The ledger's final page held a photo. Garrett Kroll, silver-haired and smug, shaking hands with men in uniforms. Mayors, sheriffs, cops. Ben's voice was hollow. He didn't just bribe them, he owned them. Danny's blood ran colder than the storm outside. Kroll wasn't just a trafficker, he was a kingpin, his empire built on vanished people and buried ledgers. And now, he knew his secrets weren't just exposed, they were in the hands of 3 men who should have died hours ago. The helicopter's roar grew louder. Rex paced, agitated. They were running out of time. "We need proof," Danny said, "something they can't deny." Ben grabbed the ledger. Jake, barely conscious, fumbled for his pocket. A thumb drive, his body cam footage from the ambush. "Got enough?" he wheezed. Rex nosed Jake's hand gently. It would have to be enough. The cabin door burst open again. Not Logan, not Drew. Sartex in orange jackets. "Hands where we can see them," one shouted. Rex stepped between them and Jake, growling. "Not yet."
The rescue team froze at Rex's snarl. Danny raised his hands. "We're cops. Our badges are—" Gunfire. A sniper round shattered the window, embedding in the wall where Danny's head had been. Chaos erupted. The SAR team dove for cover. Ben dragged Jake to the floor. Rex exploded into motion, charging through the door into the storm. Distant shouts. Another shot. Then a scream. Danny peered outside. Rex had a man pinned in the snow. Logan, his rifle just out of reach. The dog's jaws hovered over his throat. "Call him off," Logan begged. The SAR leader, a steely-eyed woman, didn't flinch. "Why?" "He seems to like you where you are." Danny grabbed the ledger, the thumb drive, proof. But as the helicopter landed, its spotlight illuminated something worse. Fresh tracks leading deeper into the woods. Drew had escaped. And Kroll? Kroll was still out there. Rex released Logan only when cuffs clicked shut. His job wasn't done, not by a long shot. The SAR team loaded Jake onto a stretcher. Ben climbed into the chopper after him, but Danny hesitated. "Rex!" The dog stood at the tree line, staring into the dark. Then a yelp. Rex jerked backward, a rusted bear trap clamped on his hind leg. Danny sprinted through the snow, dropping to his knees. Blood seeped into the snow. Rex panted, his eyes wide with pain, but no fear. The SAR leader was already there, prying the jaws open. "Old trapper's trick," she muttered. "Bastards knew we'd come this way." Rex licked Danny's hand once. Apology or forgiveness? Before struggling to his feet. The helicopter's blades whipped the snow into a frenzy. They had to go, now. But as they lifted off, Danny watched the cabin shrink below them. And there, barely visible in the storm, stood a figure. Kroll, watching, waiting. Rex's growl vibrated through Danny's chest. This wasn't over. The trap had snapped, but it caught the wrong wolf.
The medics worked frantically on Rex in the helicopter, wrapping his leg as Jake fought for breath beside him. Blood stained the floor. Rex's, Jake's, Logan's. The SAR leader, Captain Lorne, radioed ahead. 3 officers inbound, 1 canine, critical condition. Danny clutched the ledger like a lifeline. Below them, the forest blurred into white oblivion. Rex lifted his head, sniffing the air. Then, weakly, he licked Jake's dangling fingers. The kid's eyelids fluttered. "Rex!" he whispered. The dog's tail thumped once. Alive. They were all alive. For now. Ben met Danny's eyes. Kroll still out there. Danny nodded. The ledger had names, dates, proof, but proof meant nothing if Kroll silenced them first. The helicopter banked toward the hospital's glowing lights. Rex's breathing evened out. His job wasn't done. Neither was theirs. Outside, the storm raged on. Somewhere in it, a monster waited, but monsters should have known better than to hunt a canine's pack. The hospital doors slid open, revealing a swarm of medics, and Sheriff Hayes, his face unreadable. Danny tensed. Hayes was in the ledger, bribed. Rex sensed it too, baring teeth despite his bandaged leg. Hayes raised his hands. "Easy, McCall. We've got Logan in custody. Drew's face is all over the news." His gaze flicked to the ledger in Danny's grip. "That what I think it is?" Ben stepped between them. "Insurance." Hayes' smile didn't reach his eyes. "Good. We'll take it from here." Rex growled, low and dangerous. Danny's fingers tightened on the evidence. They'd almost died tonight. Jake still might. And Kroll? He had friends in every precinct. The SAR leader cleared her throat. "My team's securing this." She took the ledger, the thumb drive. No one touches it but the feds. Hayes' jaw twitched. Rex limped closer to Danny, his body a barrier. They'd survived the storm, the traps, the bullets, but the most dangerous game was just beginning. And Rex, he was wide awake.
The hospital doors hadn't even closed before the blizzard swallowed Bozeman whole. Power lines snapped under the weight of ice. Emergency lights strobed through the snow like dying fireflies. Inside the ICU, monitors beeped erratically as Jake fought the fever still burning through him. Rex lay pressed against the glass door, his bandaged leg twitching, not from pain, but from the storm's howl. It called to something deep in his blood. Danny watched the whiteout through the window, his reflection ghostly against the dark. "We should have stayed," he muttered. Ben checked his service weapon, the one the nurses didn't know he'd taken from security. "We will." Just then, Rex's head snapped up, his ears pricked forward. Through the storm's wail came another sound. Not wind, not sirens. A howl. Long, mournful. Rex answered without thinking, his voice cutting through the hospital's sterile silence. Somewhere out there, the hunt wasn't over, and neither were they.
The parking lot camera caught it first, a shadow flitting between snowdrifts. Then the emergency lights glinted off something metallic hovering outside Jake's third-floor window. Danny moved before the drone's camera lens could focus, yanking the curtains shut. Rex was already at the door, snarling. "Mercer's playing games," Ben hissed, peering through the blinds. The drone zipped sideways, then stopped abruptly. Its camera swiveled toward the stairwell door. Rex's muscles coiled. The automatic doors hissed open, and in that heartbeat before the drone could flee, Rex lunged. His leap carried him clean through the doorway, his jaws clamping around the machine with a crunch of plastic and circuitry. The drone sparked, sputtered, and died in midair. Rex landed hard on his injured leg, but didn't whine, just spat out the wreckage at Danny's feet. On the shattered screen, one word still glowed: Krall. Not a typo, a message. The game was still on, and now they'd made their move.
The interrogation room stank of sweat and bad coffee. Logan Voss smirked through his split lip, his cuffed hands tapping the table. "You really think that mutt's gonna save you?" Danny didn't rise to the bait, just slid a photo across the table. Rex standing over Logan in the snow, teeth bared. He already did. Logan's smirk faded when Ben placed the drone wreckage beside it. "Drew sends his regards," Ben lied. "Said you talked. A lot." Logan's eyes darted to the two-way mirror. "Bullshit." Behind the glass, Rex paced, his claws clicking on linoleum. The sheriff had tried to bar him from the station, but one look from those gold-flecked eyes changed his mind. Now those same eyes watched Logan through the glass, unblinking, calculating. Danny leaned close. Kroll's cutting losses. Who do you think he'll sacrifice first? As if on cue, Rex let out a low, rumbling growl that vibrated through the walls. Logan flinched. His last mistake. Because now he knew the real predator wasn't in the room with him. It was waiting just outside. The safe house was supposed to be secure, but the broken window told a different story. Danny pressed against the wall, his stolen pistol heavy in his hand. Somewhere in the dark, a floorboard creaked. Rex stood rigid at his side, his nose working the air. Then, a scent. Gun oil. Cheap cologne. Drew. Danny's finger hovered over the trigger, but it was Rex who moved first, slipping into the shadows like smoke. Danny barely breathed the command. Foss. Attack. The word hung in the air for half a heartbeat before the darkness erupted with snarls and a man's scream. A lamp crashed over. A gunshot tore through the ceiling. Then silence. When Danny found the light switch, the scene froze him mid-step. Rex had Drew pinned, the man's wrist clamped in his jaws, the same way he'd taken down Logan. But this time, blood dripped from Drew's sleeve where a switchblade lay discarded. Rex hadn't gone for the throat, just the weapon, just enough. Some lessons, it seemed, even a feral canine remembered, like restraint, like justice.
The snow had stopped when they found Kroll's cabin. Not abandoned like the last one. This place smelled of wood smoke and expensive whiskey. Rex circled the perimeter, his nose cataloging every scent. Gunpowder, gasoline, fear. Danny and Ben took positions near the door. They'd called for backup. None came. This was it. Rex returned to Danny's side, his ears flat. 3 sharp barks. A pause. Then silence. The signal they'd used on raids years ago. Clear. Danny kicked in the door. The cabin was empty. Mostly. A fire still burned in the hearth. A half-empty glass sat on the desk. And pinned to the wall with a hunting knife, a note. Ben read it aloud. "You should have died in the storm." Rex growled at something under the desk. A briefcase. Inside. Not money. Not drugs. Photos. Surveillance shots of the hospital. The police station. Jake's parents' house. Danny's hands shook. This wasn't over. Outside, an engine roared to life. Rex bolted for the sound. Danny at his heels. Too late. Just taillights vanishing into the pines. And one final message spray-painted on a tree. Still here. The cold steel barrel dug into Danny's temple as Kroll's rancid breath washed over his face. The crime lord's manicured fingernail, still crusted with Rex's blood from their last encounter, caressed the trigger. "You should have died in the fire," Kroll whispered. Danny's vision narrowed to the pistol's sight groove, his entire world reduced to that dark tunnel. Somewhere behind them, Rex struggled against the barbed wire trapping his hindquarters, his whimpers barely audible over the storm. Then, a metallic click. Not the hammer cocking, the sound of Rex's teeth severing the wire. Kroll's eyes flickered sideways, one heartbeat too late.
The attack came from nowhere and everywhere at once. A black blur launched from the blizzard's heart. 85 pounds of scarred muscle and vengeance. Kroll's scream mingled with the gunshot as Rex's fangs found their mark. Not the throat, but the wrist. The pistol discharged into the snow as man and beast rolled together. Danny scrambled for the weapon, his numb fingers closing around steel just as Rex pinned Kroll down. The dog's muzzle dripped crimson onto Kroll's designer shirt, those gold-flecked eyes burning with something beyond animal instinct. This wasn't just attack. This was justice, and Rex had been waiting 2 long winters to serve it. Chaos erupted. Logan raised his rifle just as Ben tackled him from behind. Drew's drone buzzed overhead, its camera capturing everything, until Rex leapt 8 feet straight up, his jaws snapping the machine from the sky. Kroll crawled toward his fallen pistol, leaving a red snail trail in the snow. Danny's warning shout came too late. The gun roared. Rex yelped, spinning midair before crashing down. 3 crimson petals bloomed across the white canvas, one from Kroll's wrist, one from Rex's shoulder, one from Danny's palm as he finally returned fire. The echoing gunshot faded, leaving only the wind's howl and Rex's labored breathing.
Kroll's shattered wrist hung limp, but his good hand still clutched the pistol. "I'll kill your fucking dog first," he spat, aiming at Rex's heaving form. Then the world tilted. Rex's final lunge carried them both over the ridge. They tumbled down the icy slope in a whirl of limbs and snarls, coming to rest against a frozen pine. When Danny reached him, Kroll's scream had cut off abruptly. Rex stood over him, panting heavily, the man's throat untouched, but his gun arm bent at impossible angles. The message was clear. Rex could have killed, chose not to. Some lines even battle-hardened K9s wouldn't cross. The adrenaline lasted just long enough. Rex made it 3 steps toward Danny before his legs buckled. Blood pooled beneath him, steaming in the sub-zero air. Danny cradled the dog's head, fingers probing the bullet wound. "Stay with me, partner." Rex's breathing grew shallow, but those amber eyes remained fixed on Danny's face, watching, always watching. Ben radioed for evac while Jake applied pressure to the wound. As the helicopter's thrum finally reached them, Rex's tail gave one weak thump against the snow. His gaze never wavered, not when the medics loaded him, not when the doors closed. Still on duty, still protecting, even now.
The medevac's rotors thundered overhead as Danny cradled Rex's bleeding body. The dog had taken a bullet meant for him during Kroll's ambush. Jake screamed for the EMTs while Ben provided covering fire against their unseen attackers. As the stretcher descended, Rex's breathing grew shallow, his golden eyes locked onto Danny's. No fear, just quiet trust. The moment the medics grabbed the stretcher, gunfire erupted from the tree line. The helicopter banked sharply, barely escaping the hail of bullets. Through the snow, Danny watched the only living thing that hadn't betrayed him disappear into the stormy sky. Still fighting, still loyal. The veterinary surgeon emerged covered in Rex's blood.
3 bullets, broken ribs, a leg fracture. He shook his head. But his vitals? Stronger than most healthy dogs. Danny sagged against the wall. The vet lowered his voice. That canine has more scar tissue than fur. His records show he was declared dead 2 years ago. He handed Danny a mangled metal tag, Rex's original badge, fused to his collar by fire. Whatever keeps him alive, it's not just instinct. Down the hall, Jake sobbed into his hands. Ben stared at the blood-stained ledger. And outside, the storm whispered secrets only Rex had survived to hear.
The confession tore from Danny's throat. I left him. That final raid, the collapsing warehouse. He pulled Rex from the rubble. But when the dog flatlined during transport, I signed the paperwork, walked away. The hospital chapel echoed with his shame. Ben said nothing. Jake, still pale from his own near death, placed a trembling hand on the ledger. Rex didn't. The pages contained routes, dates, proof Kroll's men had found the injured canine, had tried to use him. He escaped them, Jake whispered, and spent 2 winters surviving, waiting. A howl cut through the night, not from outside, from ICU. Rex was awake, and he remembered everything. Danny froze at ICU's glass wall. Rex stood on the operating table, IV lines torn out, fur matted with blood. The nurses kept their distance. As Danny entered, Rex turned. There, beneath fresh bandages, was the old burn scar shaped like Danny's initials from a training accident years ago. The dog's tail gave one weak wag. Danny fell to his knees. Rex limped over and rested his head on Danny's shoulder, just like he had after that long-ago fire. The vet's voice cracked. I'll give you a moment. Outside, snow swirled against the windows. Inside, 2 survivors pressed together, breathing in sync. No words needed.
When Rex barked, hoarse but unmistakable, Danny shattered. He buried his face in the dog's fur, sobbing like he hadn't since his wife's funeral. Jake and Ben looked away, giving them this moment. Rex licked Danny's ear, then nudged the ledger with his nose. The message was clear. Not done yet. Danny laughed through tears. Yeah, partner, we finished this together. The vet returned, stunned. His blood pressure stabilizing just from you being here. Rex gave a demanding woof, eyes locked on the door. The storm still raged. Kroll still ran free. But now? Now they had a weapon Kroll couldn't predict. A bond that outlasted death. The ceremony was brief, no speeches, just a canine badge placed around Rex's neck beside his old, burned one. The police chief eyed Rex warily. The dog hadn't stopped growling at him since they'd entered. Danny accepted the folded flag with numb hands. Rex cared nothing for honors. He sniffed at Danny's pocket until Jake produced a treat. The crowd chuckled. Rex took it gently, then pressed against Danny's leg. Home wasn't a place. It was this, standing together in the snow outside the station, watching the sunset paint the mountains red. 2 survivors, 2 warriors. Finally, after all this time, at peace.
The custom collar arrived a week later. Black leather. Simple. The tag bore 2 words, still here. Danny fastened it around Rex's neck as the dog watched the woods behind their new cabin. Some habits died hard. Rex still woke growling at nightmares, still patrolled the perimeter each dawn. But now, when he returned, he'd press his cold nose into Danny's palm, as if to say, I chose to come back. That night, as Danny stoked the fire, Rex dropped a snow-dampened file at his feet. Kroll's face stared up from a surveillance photo. The dog's tail wagged once. The hunt wasn't over, but neither were they. Jake stood at the cabin door, his uniform crisp, his eyes still shadowed by near death. Transferred to canine unit, he said.
holding out a leash. Rex sniffed the rookie's hand. No treats this time, then licked his fingers. Approval. Danny nodded. He trusts you. Jake knelt, meeting Rex's gaze. I'll do right by them, like you did by us. Rex huffed, nudging Jake's badge with his nose. A reminder. This means something. As Jake left, Danny scratched Rex's ears. Guess we're not the only ones who learned that lesson. Outside, the first snowflakes of a new storm began to fall. The good kind.
Ben arrived unannounced, a bottle of whiskey in one hand, a dog toy in the other. Rex took the toy gently. Marines, Ben said, watching Rex's perfect hold. Had a Belgian Malinois, Cobble. He didn't need to finish. Danny poured 2 glasses. They drank in silence until Ben whispered, I let go of his leash. Just for a second. Rex rested his head on Ben's knee. No judgment. Just understanding. Ben's hand shook as he petted the scarred fur. This one? He's better than we deserve. Outside, the northern lights danced, green ghosts over the pines. A night for memories, for forgiveness. Spring came reluctantly to the mountains. As the last snowbanks receded, townsfolk began sharing stories. A dark shape seen prowling the blizzard, saving stranded hikers, leading rescuers to a crashed snowmobile. At the diner, old men argued over coffee. That ain't no ordinary dog, one insisted. That's the ghost canine of Whitecrest. Danny listened, smiling, as Rex dozed in a sunbeam, his new badge glinting. The scars remained, the nightmares too. But now kids left treats at the station. Dispatch got calls about Rex sightings. And every cop in Montana knew, no one gets left behind. Not while the ghost dog watches.
The framed photo sat beside Danny's badge. A recent shot of him and Rex standing at the cabin's edge, the mountains sprawling behind them. No forced smiles, just 2 battle-scarred warriors finally at rest. Every morning, Danny touched the frame before heading out. Every night, Rex sniffed it before settling by the fire. Proof they'd made it. That after the blizzards, the blood, the betrayals, they'd carved out something like peace. The photo didn't show Rex's ears twitching at distant noises, or Danny's hand drifting toward his hip when a car backfired. But that was okay. Some ghosts were worth keeping. The Children's Hospital didn't expect a scarred canine when they requested a therapy dog. But Rex took to it instantly. He'd press against wheelchairs so kids could pet him without straining. He'd fetch dropped IV poles with gentle jaws. And when a terrified boy flinched at his appearance, Rex laid down, rolled over, and let the child trace his battle scars like a map of survival. He's not pretty, the nurse whispered to Danny, but he understands pain better than any of us. Outside, snow began to fall. The soft, kind that blankets the world in quiet. The kind that heals.
3 a.m. Danny bolted upright, sweat-drenched, his wife's name dying on his lips. Before he could reach for the whiskey, a cold nose nudged his hand. Rex stood silhouetted in moonlight, his tags glinting. No pity in those golden eyes. Just a demand. Up. Move. Danny pulled on his boots. Together they walked the frozen creek until their breath came steady. Some nights, Rex would suddenly take off running, chasing phantom enemies into the dark until they both collapsed, laughing, in the snow. The nightmares didn't stop. But now they had an answer. 2 sets of footprints leading home. Always home. The memorial stone was simple. Canine Rex. Presumed lost. 2021. Danny knelt in the snow, brushing ice from the engraving. The real Rex sniffed the stone,
then tilted his head at the distant peaks. Danny's voice cracked. "You were never here, were you?" A gust of wind through the pines sounded like a sigh. Then, clear as day, a lone howl echoed across the valley. Rex's ears pricked. Not his own voice, not a wolf's. Something other. Danny smiled through tears. Maybe some ghosts stayed with you. Maybe some bonds outlasted even death. Rex nosed his pocket. Treat? Business as usual. The cancer diagnosis came in winter, as storms do. Danny sat on the porch, Rex's head heavy in his lap. "Seems fitting," he murmured, scratching the old battle scars. Rex licked his wrist. Enough talk. They still walked the perimeter every morning, still checked the locks twice. Old habits. Good ones. That final night, Danny whispered it against Rex's fur. "You were always the best of us." The fire crackled, the wind sang, and when the EMTs came at dawn, they found Rex lying across Danny's chest, guarding him even now. Two hearts, one silence, and somewhere beyond the pines, a howl. The old-timers at the VFW still argue about it. Some say AC was a ranger who vanished tracking poachers. Others swear it stands for Avoid Cabin. The truth? Buried in an unmarked grave near the Canadian border, where Kroll's first ledger ended. Rex found it years later, a sun-bleached parka with A. Calloway stitched inside. He laid a single paw on the fabric, then backed away, whining. Danny left a sheriff's star atop the disturbed earth. No fanfare, no flags, just two old soldiers honoring another. The snow fell softly that day, the kind that forgives, the kind that remembers. The wildlife biologists wrote papers about it, how a domesticated canine survived 2 Montana winters alone. The broken ribs that healed crooked, the paw pads toughened by ice, the GPS data showing 1,200 miles traversed, twice the distance from the warehouse collapse to Danny's new precinct. Dogs don't have homing instincts like that, argued the experts. Rex, sprawled before Danny's fireplace, couldn't care less about science. He'd limped through blizzards, outsmarted armed men, cheated death more times than anyone knew. Some things didn't need explaining. Some bonds defied logic. The researchers never noticed Rex's collar tag. Still here. That said enough. Ask any handler. They'll tell you, shepherds don't just obey. They choose. Rex proved it daily. The way he'd refuse treats from strangers, but take Jake's with gentle teeth. How he'd ignore the mayor, but lick the janitor's hand. That time he dragged Danny back from a thin ice patch, growling like the devil himself. Science calls it selective bonding. Danny called it love. On Rex's last birthday, estimated, the whole precinct brought steaks. Rex took each offering solemnly, then deposited them at Danny's feet. For you. Because loyalty wasn't about worth. It was about choice. And Rex? He chose Danny. Always. The documentary crew wanted Rex's story. Danny refused. He's earned his piece. But the night before they left, Rex trotted to their van and dropped something at the director's feet. His original, fire-melted badge. The film won awards. Not for the reenactments, for the final shot, Rex's silhouette against a sunset, walking his patrol along the cabin's edge. No music, just the crunch of snow and his steady breathing. The credits rolled over a simple card, dedicated to all who serve and the silent partners who bring them home. In theaters nationwide, audiences stood and saluted. In Montana, Rex yawned. Because you understand that loyalty isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, broken, scarred, but still fighting. For the veterans who found purpose in a dog's eyes, for the survivors who recognized themselves in Rex's story, for everyone who's ever whispered just a little further to themselves in the dark. This wasn't just about a canine, it was about second chances, about the hands that pull us back from the edge.
So if Rex's journey touched you, tell us, because the world needs reminders that even in the coldest storms, love leaves footprints, and no one gets left behind.